If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description. Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers.
And today's subject is true crime and the dark web. Once again, if you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the video, hit the like button and feel free to share it across social media platforms. Any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. Also, make sure to like our Facebook page. You can also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. Okay, Maxwell, so you've been on a research kick involving the dark web, of which for some reason you didn't seem to know that much about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know a little bit. I know about Silk Road, but that's about it. I thought it was well, I just watched this TED Talk, and the title was, why Darknet is going mainstream. So that was really interesting. Like, I didn't know, like, Facebook started a dark website. It was in 2014. Yeah, a lot of things going on. I think it's From what I've seen, I think it's the future because people are worried about their privacy, so they're just gonna go all dark web. The whole net is gonna, well, the whole world population is gonna go dark web. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
it's not just
That could,
it's not just privacy, but the censoring by Google, Facebook, YouTube, all these things where the censoring of search results. I mean, you can go to uncensored search engines, but Google kind of has a monopoly. So with your phone or Apple or whatnot, everything's kind of built into your phone. So if you're not on desktop or you don't want to go through all the extra steps of removing apps, adding apps, doing all these things to kind of get the non-limited free speech version of the internet. So, which is kind of crazy because not that many years ago, a lot of people actually said it would never get to the point where it's already at with privacy issues, with censoring of information or certain news sources. Didn't YouTube say that they would no longer be recommending videos with the word conspiracy or a conspiracy tag? So, it's kind of weird, like especially for people that are interested in it. It's just for the really, really tinfoil hat theorists, it seems like this is kind of the Orwellian dystopia that was described where kind of the truth, if that's the truth, it just gets censored so heavily and becomes, is this the equivalent of book burning where you just make certain information unavailable, information that people either disagree with, unpopular opinions, or any of those things? What do you think?
hmm, I'm close to it, but I think business wise, YouTube is probably doing that because they feel pressured for um like a sense of social responsibility. So
To cover up
I
the
mean,
truth?
whether it's, I don't know them, so it could be that they completely don't believe anything. You know what I mean? They're just completely skeptical about conspiracies, or some of them might believe in conspiracies, but it's just so I don't know, controversial.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let's say they don't believe any of it. Like the whole point of free speech in a free society is that it's open for discussion and not shut down. So why, you know what I'm saying? Like, so if people are
Yeah, I
certain people,
understand. I'm um trying to figure out an explanation for why.
so I don't think it matters
I
whether
don't
they
know.
believe or disbelieve. It's kind of scary book burning because I mean, books that were burned were books that were considered dangerous, not necessarily untrue. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
for a direct example, it's not it really has I mean, obviously if it's true, I mean that's pretty crazy, but let's say it's all complete nonsense. If people are interested in that specific complete nonsense topic, like let's say they want to know about the Palladians or whatever, or like some kind of alien conspiracy, and that's no longer going to come up in their recommended. I don't know if this is true. That's what was reported. is that YouTube would not be recommending videos with the conspiracy name or tag. So if that's true, it's pretty strange. Or even in search results, and you could kind of see certain people that have had a lot of free time on their hands, they kind of compared, certain conspiracy topics where the searches were spiking, but then the results don't come up in search anymore. And I kind of noticed that as well, not even with conspiracy videos, because they're constantly changing their algorithms, but that's a convenient way to kind of say, oh, well, the algorithm's changed, so now you can't get this type of information. Whereas in the past, it would pop up because honesty wise, that's what was in the tags, so it popped up. So there was none of this, or a lot less of this tricky business. Same thing in Google search, same thing in Facebook, where there's a lot of weird, tricky business with algorithms and censoring. But that's a little bit of a side topic. The main point here was the dark web and how that impacts crime. So my first thoughts were when I first heard of this, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but it's not dissimilar to like when the internet first came out and there was no policing of it. I mean, people could sell whatever contraband or, drugs, guns, whatever. And I think the dark web is a very important topic for the people who are kind of anti-gun or anti-drugs or whatever, because criminals don't follow laws. So it's kind of weird how certain groups kind of push for more laws, like on a very basic logical level. Murder is already illegal, so banning guns is going to do what? Increase murder by non-gun? Even that is disputable, because if if most murders are committed by guns bought on the black market, making guns illegal would have literally zero effect on anything, right? If anything, it would just increase the power of gangs or mafias that are selling guns, because now they'll be even more in demand, because then nobody will be able to get guns legally. So all the citizens that want to defend themselves will be forced to buy guns illegally. So then you'll have a prohibition or drug war situation where you're giving a lot of power to these criminal enterprises, creating a worse situation than it is now. So the dark web kind of presents a very, very interesting reality where anybody can buy anything. And so will prices actually go down because there'll be more competition? Because if the dark web is the only place you can, let's say guns are illegal, if the dark web is the only place you can buy a gun, and a lot of people are kind of jumping in, underbidding each other for guns, will that make it even easier to get guns?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I really like the dark web. I'm kind of glad you mentioned it. Now I know, like, it's it's really cool. I think it's almost like a road to freedom. I mean,
That's a
it's
highly controversial statement there, Maxwell.
well, I I just yeah, I it's it's a highway to anarchism. So that's really cool. I really like it.
So, just to highlight the differences, what and how would you do something on the dark web versus the regular web? Like let's say on either Craigslist, you make a username, whatnot. It's not your real name. You advertise something. I mean, obviously, Craigslist is heavily censored now or heavily regulated, whereas at the beginning of Craigslist, it wasn't. You could do whatever. I mean, I don't know if people were kind of trying to hire a hitman on Craigslist. I'm sure they probably were in the early days. I don't, I haven't seen that. I haven't really researched that, but I wouldn't be surprised if some people tried to hire a hitman on Craigslist in the early days of Craigslist. But on the dark web, isn't that like a normal occurrence? And also, the people that don't like the dark web or criticize the dark web, rightfully so, for certain aspects, like, for example, human trafficking. Like, you could just buy people on the dark web. I haven't been on the dark web. I'm kind of reluctant to go down that dark rabbit hole. It's kind of like, when you stare deep enough into the abyss or long enough into the abyss stares back into you, or the void. If you stare if you stare long enough into the void stares back into you. That's just so creepy. I kind of attributed that, maybe unfairly, to the dark web, but yeah, it seems like there's a lot of shadiness on there. Not that I, obviously I wouldn't have anything to do with anything illegal or human trafficking of any kind, but That's what a lot of people use it for. And conversely, I mean, I'm sure with code words and, weird forums, I'm sure people human traffic on the actual web as well, and they don't need to use the dark web. So I'm not saying it's just a dark web problem. I'm just saying, how do you reconcile all those things with it being a road to freedom?
Well, there's a lot to think about. I'm kind of new to it. I want to do more research and learn more the ins and outs. But one of the disadvantages for criminals going on the dark web is you don't know who you're talking to a lot of times. So there could be a lot of law enforcement that goes online on the dark web that to set you up to a meeting and get you arrested. So it's not a completely safe place for um, let's say freedom acting people with working against bullies.
Yeah, but let's say you want to buy a gun or drugs or whatever on the dark web. You can order it under whatever, some kind of moniker or some kind of username, have it delivered to, some kind of PO box or whatever storage unit, or you give the person a code that you got under a different name or whatnot. Who knows? Whatever. You have it dropped off somewhere, at your own risk. If somebody else steals it, whatever, you just, you get somebody, they do a drop off, you do a pickup, even if it was law enforcement, unless you,
That's pretty. That's a good strategy. I mean, I'm not. I'm like again. I'm new to the dark web. That's kind of a. That's cool that you thought about that. That's
well, I
yeah.
mean,
That's pretty cool.
you could do that using Craigslist as well. So I'm not saying it's unique to the dark web. I'm sure this is done on forums like leave this or this in a public.
Right.
You know how you
Right.
watch those spy movies, like put
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
in this locker or rental, or put it, behind the trash can, or it'll be here, it'll be there, or it's a rental car. Somebody rents a car. Oh, reach under the seat. It's there. Like there's infinite scenarios where you don't have to meet the person, because that is risky, not just because it could be law enforcement, but it could be some kind of other shady criminal that's going to, kill you or steal your money and not give you the goods. Like, you can't trust a criminal. So there's endless scenarios where you would need to protect yourself regardless if you were a criminal or not. But what I was asking before is with human trafficking or hiring hitmen or things like that, or of that nature on the dark web. I mean, do you want to do a quick recap of the Silk Road for the people who don't know?
It's been such a long time, but I forgot. I even forgot his name, which is kind of not good because he's a hero. The owner of Silk Road went to jail for well, he's going for the rest of his life unless he gets another trial or something. But um, no, yeah, I don't know that much really. I
All
just
right,
know.
I'll give a quick recap. This is just straight off of Wikipedia, but Silk Road was an online black market and the first modern darknet market, best known as a platform for selling illegal drugs. As part of the dark web, it was operated as a Tor hidden service, such that online users were able to browse it anonymously and securely without potential traffic monitoring. The website was launched in February 2011. Development had begun 6 months prior. Initially, there were a limited number of new seller accounts available. New sellers had to purchase an account in an auction. Later, a fixed fee was charged for each new seller account. It was launched in February 2011 and it was shut down by the FBI in October 2013. Silk Road 2.0 shut down by FBI and Europol on November 6, 2014. Silk Road 3.0 went offline in 2017 due to loss of funds. In October 2013, the Federal Bureau of Investigation shut down the website and arrested Ross Ulbricht under charges of being the site's pseudonymous founder, Dread Pirate Roberts. Okay, on November 6, 2013, Silk Road 2.0 came online, run by former administrators of Silk Road. It too was shut down, and the alleged operator was arrested on November 6, 2014, as part of the so called Operation Onimus. Albrecht was convicted of 8 charges related to Silk Road in the U.S. federal court in Manhattan and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. How, I mean, murderers have gotten out. Child murderers have gotten out quicker than that. I mean, it's
I
insane.
know
It's
it's one of the most ridiculous things. Like they wanted to make an example of this dude, and man, and there's I that's 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 sad.
All right, well, let me go over more. So, the history of the operations. Silk Road was founded in February 2011. The name Silk Road comes from a historical network of trade routes started during the Han Dynasty, 206 BC to 220 AD, between Europe, India, China, and many other countries on the Afro-Eurasian landmass. Silk Road was operated by pseudonymous Dread Pirate Roberts, named after the fictional character from The Princess Bride, who was known for espousing libertarian ideals and criticizing regulation. Two other individuals were also closely involved in the site's growth and success, known as Variety Jones and Smedley. In June 2011, Gawker published an article about the site, which led to internet buzz and an increase in website traffic. Once the site was known publicly, U.S. Senator Charles Schumer asked federal law enforcement authorities to shut it down, including the Drug Enforcement Administration and Department of Justice. In May 2013, Silk Road was taken down for a short period of time by a sustained DDoS attack. On June 23rd, 2013, it was first reported that the DEA seized 11.02 bitcoins, then worth a total of $814. That's not much, which the media suspected was a result of a Silk Road honeypot sting. The FBI has claimed that the real IP address of Silk Road server was found via data leaked directly from the site's CAPTCHA. But security researchers believe that the PHP login page was manipulated to output its server variable and real IP following site maintenance reconfiguration. Henry Farrell, an associate professor of political science and international affairs at George Washington University, analyzed Silk Road in an essay for Aeon in 2015. He noted that Ulbricht created the marketplace to function without government oversight, but found it difficult to verify anonymous transactions. To sustain a steady stream of revenue, he started increasing oversight to ensure low transaction costs. To do this, he added measures to ensure trustworthiness with implementation of an automated escrow payment system and automated review system. The arrest and trial of Ross Ulbricht. Thanks in part to off-duty research conducted by IRS criminal investigator Gary Alford, Ross Ulbricht was alleged by the FBI to be the founder and owner of Silk Road and the person behind the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts. He was arrested on October 2nd, 2013 in San Francisco at 3:15 p.m. in Glen Park Library, a branch of San Francisco Public Library. Ulbricht was indicted on charges of money laundering, computer hacking, conspiracy to traffic narcotics, and attempting to have 6 people killed. Prosecutors allege that Ulbricht paid $730,000 to others to commit the murders, although none of the murders actually occurred. Ulbricht ultimately was not prosecuted for any of the alleged murder attempts. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's insane. So he wasn't even prosecuted for the murder attempts, the alleged murder attempts, and he's in prison for life? So that's just for conspiracy to traffic narcotics, not actually trafficking narcotics?
Yeah, it's all yeah, it's like a setup almost. Like they somehow they added all these other things to it that he never did, and I
Yeah,
don't
but
know. It's
even the
just
things
silly.
that he did, how is that a it's kind of weird. How is that a life you get a life sentence for money laundering? I mean, you could beat somebody within an inch of of their life and be out in a year.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's one of those things that I like. You kind of you almost have to turn away from it because it's so bad.
Yeah, the FBI initially seized 26,000 bitcoins from accounts on Silk Road worth approximately $3.6 million at the time. An FBI spokesperson said that the agency would hold the bitcoins until Ulbricht's trial was finished, after which the bitcoins would be liquidated. Wait, so they just stole all these people's money? What if this was for non-illegal activities? That's weird. In October 2013, the FBI reported that it had seized 144,000 bitcoins worth $28.5 million and that the bitcoins belonged to Ulbricht. On June 27, 2014, the U.S. Marshal Service sold 29,657 bitcoins in 10 blocks in an online auction estimated to be worth $18 million at current rates and only about a quarter of the seized bitcoins. Another 144,342 bitcoins were kept, which had been found on Ulbricht's computer, roughly $87 million. If this is all true, that's insane. Why is he still in the US? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of weird. Tim Draper bought the bitcoins at the auction with an estimated worth of $17 million to lend them to Bitcoin startup called Vaurum, which is working in developing economies of emerging markets. Ulbricht's trial began on January 13th, 2015 in federal court in Manhattan. At the start of the trial, Ulbricht admitted to founding the Silk Road website, but claimed to have transferred control of the site to other people soon after he founded it. Ulbricht's lawyers contended that Dread Pirate Roberts was really Mark Karpelès, and that Karpelès set up Ulbricht as a fall guy. However, Judge Catherine B. Forrest ruled that any speculative statements regarding whether Karpelès or anyone else ran Silk Road would not be allowed, and statements already made would be stricken from the record. That's really bizarre. That's like Stephen Avery territory. You're not allowed to bring forth even a theory and support it with whatever evidence is available, even if it's not a lot. You're not allowed to defend yourself in court. That's kind of bizarre. In the second week of the trial, prosecutors presented documents and chat logs from Ulbricht's computer that they said demonstrated how Ulbricht had administered the site for many months, which contradicted the defense's claim that Ulbricht has relinquished control of Silk Road. Ulbricht's attorney suggested that the documents and chat logs were planted there by way of BitTorrent, which was running on Ulbricht's computer at the time of his arrest. On February 4th, 2015, the jury convicted Ulbricht of 7 charges, including charges of engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and computer hacking. He faced 30 years to life in prison. The government also accused Ulbricht of paying for the murders of at least 5 people, but there is no evidence that the murders were actually carried out, and the accusations never became formal charges against Ulbricht. That's kind of weird. So they just accused him? Like, what was the evidence or the basis for that? That's weird. During the trial, Judge Forrest received death threats. Users of an underground site called the Hidden Wiki posted her personal information there, including her address and social security number. Ulbricht's lawyer, Joshua Dratel, said, is it Dratel or Dratel? Dratel said that he and his client obviously and as strongly as possible condemn the anonymous postings against the judge. They do not in any way have anything to do with Ross Ulbricht or anyone associated with him or reflect his views or those of anyone associated with him, Dratel said. In late March 2015, a criminal complaint issued by the U.S. District Court for Northern District of California led to the arrest of 2 former federal agents who had worked undercover in the Baltimore Silk Road investigation of Ulbricht. Former Drug Enforcement Administration agent Carl Mark Force IV and Secret Service agent Sean Bridges. The agents are alleged to have kept funds that Ulbricht transferred to them in exchange for purported information about the investigation. The agents were charged with wire fraud and money laundering. In November 2016, Ulbricht's lawyers brought forward a case on a third DE agent who they claim was leaking information about the investigation and tampered with evidence to omit chat logs showing conversations with him. In a letter to Judge Forrest before his sentencing, Ulbricht stated that his actions through Silk Road were committed through libertarian idealism and that Silk Road was supposed to be about giving people the freedom to make their own choices, and admitted that he made a terrible mistake that ruined his life. Why do you think he said that, Maxwell? That it was a terrible mistake? Or like why was it a mistake to have a market? I mean, if nothing illegal was being done, I mean, obviously other people were doing illegal things, but I mean, can you be held if you make a website, can you be held liable for what other people are doing on the web? It's just so weird how like the law in relation to the internet is so bizarre because whatever happened to people are responsible for their own actions and not the actions of others. It's
Yeah,
just
I mean that was the whole controversy. It was just I don't know what to say about it. But hmm. What was the other question before that? Before.
Well, he said he made a terrible mistake and ruined his
Oh
life.
yeah. He's probably saying that because he didn't know how powerful the bully was. Like he didn't know that he was gonna get that bullied. Like
You mean by the government?
yeah,
Huh.
like he didn't know how powerful the bully and evil the government was. So he regrets it now because he didn't know how evil the government was.
Well, it's a pretty big philosophical question because if you enable some kind of a service where people are anonymous, now you might have enabled the service, but the anonymous and you enabled the service for anonymous people to do good things, okay? But they chose to do bad things. Like it's almost like saying the government licensed someone to drive a vehicle and the person drove a vehicle into a human, killing them intentionally. Are you going to sue the DMV? Like, is the DMV liable for licensing the person to do something? It's kind of weird. And it's not even that extreme because he didn't exactly license. He kind of just like built the road. So if somebody builds a road, that's an even better example. If somebody builds a road and someone does a hit and run on the road, is the road builder responsible?
Exactly. I mean, I think we should imprison all the road builders for facilitating the
And what about all the
that's
DUIs? Yeah, and all the DUIs. I mean, you're
yeah,
like if the road wasn't there, the people couldn't drink and drive on
yeah.
it.
Exactly. Like, I mean, those are great points, and people have made similar points and similar analogies, but it
If there
just
really is, if there,
it just doesn't work because like and the news will sell this Ross Ulbricht as this evil mastermind, and that's probably why they set up. I don't know what happened with those what do you call the charges? The seven charges for killing.
well, let me finish. So here. Oh, the chart conspiracy to murder.
Yeah. Like that's. I mean that wasn't him, man. I don't know how they did it, but they somehow
But here's
set
the
it up like
thing.
that.
So I don't know exactly what went down with the case. Let's say even because if he really did use it illegally specifically, then he's liable for his illegal actions. But what does that have to do with creating the Silk Road, though?
Yeah,
So
exactly. I
it's kind of
mean,
like if
like
the road
if he's
builder. Hold on.
if
So
it
if the
if a
road
conspiracy
builder.
to sell illegal drugs or like charge him for that, like what does that have to do with like yeah, it's
So yeah. So it's like if the road builder
but
or the people that built the road, if they went and did something else illegal, whether it was on the road or not, they obviously they're liable for what they did. If they were drinking and driving or they hit somebody in a hit and run, they're liable for that, but not because they built the road. It was just because they're liable for that. So yeah, it's weird. Let me finish the article.
and, and just to let everyone know, my stance on drugs is to legalize everything. Just I don't know. I have to say that just because just to let people know, I guess.
On May 29th, 2015, Ulbricht was given 5 sentences to be served concurrently, including 2 for life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Wait, he got 2 life sentences.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Not one.
ridiculous, man. I
He
mean, it
was
gets ridiculous as you go deeper, because
he was ordered to forfeit $183 million. You know what's weird? Do they have evidence that this money was as a result of illegal enterprise? Because if he's just buying and selling stuff legally, but using Silk Road, why? It's like if somebody's on eBay buying and selling, and let's say they do get convicted of a crime, is is the money they made legally like why is that able to be seized? That has nothing to do with a different crime. Like even when a serial killer goes to prison, I mean, do they steal all his money in his bank account? I don't know. Do they? Like if he had a
yeah,
if he had,
I don't know what to do with that. But I guess they stole it because of the drug connection. But uh,
all right, hold on. So he was ordered to forfeit $183 million. Ulbricht's lawyer, Drattel said that he would appeal the sentencing and the original guilty verdict. On May 31st, 2017, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit denied Ulbricht's appeal and affirmed the judgment of conviction and life sentence. In a written opinion authored by the, you know, it's weird, like they call these judges honorable. Like it's weird, like the corrupt judges are still called honorable. If they're proven corrupt, why would you call a judge honorable? It's kind of weird. Gerald E.
They
Lynch.
they they do it. They do it to get on his, I don't know, his good side. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I mean that's the official title. I don't. You know, like
Oh, oh, really?
when you
Oh,
address the
I
judge,
miss what you
you
said. That's
when
funny.
you address the judge, you say your honor, like as if
Yeah,
they have honor, like automatically. You know, honor and
yeah,
respect are earned. They're not just magically bestowed because a person has a certain uniform. That's kind of
yeah.
weird. That's almost like medieval times. Like that's almost like Middle Ages
Yep.
worshiping a
Yeah.
king. Like if the king now the king could be honorable and good, but he could also be evil. You don't just automatically assume he's honorable. It's like it's
Yeah.
weird like wordplay that they get people to be kind of subservient in court. The Supreme Court declined to review the case. If there was ever a case that needed reviewing, like like they'll review all these basic cases, but they won't review something like this that's like revolutionary. It's weird, man. All right, well, let's get into other trials that are kind of similar. So, in February 2013, an Australian cocaine and ecstasy dealer became the first person to be convicted of crimes directly related to Silk Road after authorities intercepted drugs that he was importing through the mail, searched his premises, and discovered his Silk Road alias in an image file on his personal computer. Australian police and the DEA have targeted Silk Road users and made arrests, albeit with limited success at reaching convictions. In December 2013, a New Zealand man was sentenced to 2 years and 4 months in jail after being convicted of importing 15 grams of methamphetamine that he bought on Silk Road. 23-year-old Dutch drug dealer Cornelis Jan Slomp pled guilty for large-scale selling of drugs through the Silk Road website and was sentenced in Chicago to 10 years in prison on May 29th, 2015, with his attorney Paul Petruzzi present. Dealer Steven Sadler was sentenced to 5 years in prison. There have been over 130 other arrests with the Silk Road, although some of these arrests may not be directly related to the Silk Road and may not be public information due to legal reasons. Okay, so here's another thing that we've talked about before, but I'll address it right now because I think it's mind shocking, if you will. So, can you imagine the amount of good that could be done for society if all of the money and resources that went into prosecuting drug crimes went into helping people
Yeah. Exactly.
in the world?
We'd probably have no problems with homelessness and all that stuff.
Well, in Portugal, I believe it was in 2011, they decriminalized all drugs, and the results were astounding. The amount of people addicted, the amount of people in rehab, like their society completely transformed because it
Yeah.
was just crazy.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just crazy.
They decriminalized drugs from what I remember. Or,
Yeah,
well, I'm
all
not sure
drugs.
about completely legalizing, but like decriminalized, I'm sure. But everything had a positive effect on that.
All right, so here's an article from Time magazine. Want to win the war on drugs? Portugal might have the answer by Nana Bajikol, August 1st, 2018. When Gonzalo Fonseca was a child, he went to school near Castle Ventoso, a Lisbon neighborhood that also served as the biggest open air drugs market in Europe. I have the vivid memory of being a child and seeing someone shoot up in broad daylight, the photographer says. His experience wasn't unusual. In the 90s, some 5,000 addicts roamed the streets of the hilly neighborhood searching for their daily fix as dirty syringes piled up in the gutters. Back then, Portugal was in the grip of heroin addiction. An estimated 1% of the population, Bankers, students, socialites were hooked on heroin, and Portugal had the highest rate of HIV infection in the entire European Union. It was carnage, recalls Americo Nave, a psychologist and president of Crescere, an outreach NGO focused on harm reduction practices. As the government prepared to demolish Casal Ventoso in 2001, he was working with the addicts living in the neighborhood. People had sores filled with maggots. Some lost their arms or legs due to overusing. Over the course of 2 decades, the government's response had been one that Americans will recognize. It introduced increasingly harsh policies led by the criminal justice system, while conservative critics spoke out against drug use. By the late 90s, about half of the people in prison were there for drug-related reasons, creating a large addicted inmate population. Nothing was working. On the other side of the Atlantic, the US was doing the same, spending billions of dollars cracking down on drug users. But in 2001, Portugal took a radical step. It became the first country in the world to decriminalize the consumption of all drugs. At the height of the heroin crisis in the 90s, as many as 5,000 drug users lived on the streets of Casal Ventoso neighborhood. Portugal made history January 12, 2017, by becoming the first country in the world to abolish criminal penalties for consumption and possession of all drugs. The war on drugs. 17 years on, the U.S. is still suffering its worst addiction epidemic in American history. In 2016 alone, an estimated 64,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses, more than the combined death tolls for Americans in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars. That's pretty crazy to think about, right? In
Wait, what's that? I
64
forgot.
64,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses. That's more
Oh,
that's more than the combined death toll for Americans in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and the Iraq wars.
oh shit.
In
That's
Po-
messed up.
in Portugal, meanwhile, the drug-induced death rate has plummeted to 5 times lower than the European Union average and stands at 1/50th of the United States. Its rate of HIV infection has dropped from 104.2 cases per million in 2000 to 4.2 cases per million in 2015. Huh. Drug use has declined overall among the 15 to 24-year-old population, those most at risk of initiating drug use. In 2017, Fonseca spent 3 months embedded with one of Lisbon's drug outreach teams. He was interested in seeing and photographing the kind of help people are getting in Portugal now that drug usage isn't a political priority. America and Portugal are very different countries, Fonseca says, pointing out that what worked in his home country may not translate to the US, but at the same time, he says, there are lessons to be learned from the approach of treating drug addiction as a medical issue rather than a criminal problem. A 2015 study found that since Portugal approved the new national strategy in 1999 that led to decriminalization, the per capita social cost of drug misuse decreased by 18%. And according to a report by the Drug Policy Alliance, a New York based nonprofit with the goal of ending America's war on drugs, the percentage of people in prison in Portugal for drug law violations has decreased dramatically from 44% in 99 to 24% in 2013. 17 years later on, since 2011, the Crescere outreach team has walked the same route on an abandoned construction project in the Lisbon suburb. They provide heroin and cocaine addicts with what they need for safer consumption: clean needles, tinfoil, and psychological support. Each year, they help about 1,600 users. If we didn't reach out to them or go to the places where they are using, nobody would know they exist. Joanna Frias, a 26-year-old nurse working as part of a task force for the Portuguese harm reduction policy, told Fonseca, "We don't judge them in any way. If they want to, in their own time, we can help them stop using." Under the 2001 law, drug dealers still go to prison, but anyone caught with less than a 10-day supply of any drug, including marijuana and heroin, is typically sent to a local commission consisting of a doctor, lawyer, and social worker where they learn about treatment and available medical services. And in Portugal, no distinction is made between hard or soft drugs or whether consumption happens in private or public. What matters is whether the relationship to drugs is healthy or not. That's pretty interesting. If they did that in the US, I think, it would help at least X percent of people, at least a certain percentage, not necessarily the majority, but the government, the anti-government people definitely would say that the government's goal is not to really help anyone, but to make as much money as possible with as many people in prison as possible. So they wouldn't be interested in helping drug users. So the article is pretty extensive, but that was the general gist. Between 98 and 2011, the number of people in drug treatment increased by over 60% of them. Nearly three-quarters of them received opioid substitution therapy. So that's all pretty interesting, but the main point with the dark web is, and there'll always be a dark web, whether it's the dark web itself or some other, there will always be something because criminals don't follow laws and they always get around the laws regardless of what it is. And you can use examples, once again, prohibition, the drug war, or guns if there is a gun ban. In any country in the world, even where drugs are illegal, where guns are illegal, the criminals have guns. Now, the other thing that I saw that was interesting is an argument made, if you make all guns illegal and the police are the only ones who have guns, you'll be putting targets on law enforcement backs, because now you'll have gangs of criminals attacking police to steal their guns. So it'll increase, it'll destabilize society even more and increase crime even more. I did see a very interesting solution to the gun problem. I don't know if you've heard this one, Maxwell, but check this out. I saw someone suggest that there should be no regulation on civilian gun ownership. So basically, all civilians would have guns, but police would not be allowed to have guns. So they only have non lethal force, whether that's guns with rubber bullets or tasers or whatever. So the population is armed. So now you wouldn't really have the corrupt law enforcement going around, planting drugs on people and shooting them, or all these issues that happen, because the civilians would have guns and they would have only non-lethal force. What do you think about that?
That's interesting. Also, I can see a a coalition of civilians becoming police, like communal police.
Well,
I
it's
can see that.
interesting. I think if law enforcement had non-lethal force only, then they'd be much more interested in actually following the law and much less likely to be corrupt. And that profession would attract less of the bully mindset type people who just want to push people around due to their own psychology. Which we talked about this before in our police conspiracy podcast, where a lot of, like, in the police academy, like actual people, actual instructors, even who have since retired or quit, they said that the attitude and the mentality taught in police academy has nothing to do with the law. It's to survive and, you know, to be aggressive and to escalate. It's pretty insane to push. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're actually teaching them to plant drugs or guns on people, but they're not teaching them to respect the law. They're teaching them to, that getting home to their family is the top priority, not the law. So, if they feel threatened in any way, if somebody's pulling out a cell phone, you could shoot first and ask questions later, and these are the words of actual former instructors in the police academy. You can check out a bunch of documentaries on this. It's pretty scary stuff out there, but yeah, we kind of got sidetracked slightly, but the dark web and the ability to purchase drugs or guns or anything, you view kind of as the dark web as a road to freedom, I guess. Is that your position? So how do you rectify some of the negatives, like, buying, let's say, not even, like, let's say you buy a tank on the dark web, or there's no regulation, so you buy a tank. I mean, you kind of get, I mean, I don't know, I'm not saying it's bad or good, it's kind of crazy to think about. Or human trafficking, like, how do you regulate that on a dark web?
I don't really know, but I mean, To me, it's the positives outweigh the negatives so far. Um, uh, I mean, they're already. I mean, law enforcement is doing stuff with it. They go under the radar by pretending just to be someone else, and they catch people. But that's about it. So like the criminals are more careful. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I have to think about that. I have to think about like regulating or not regulating, but how should I say, tracking the what do you call it when you hire a a killer? What do you call it?
A hitman?
Yeah, hitman, that kind of thing, or assassinations. And what's the other big negative? Well, the drug deal, like to me, that's so stupid. I mean, all drugs should be legalized anyway. It's artificially inflated price by government. It just fucks everything up. So, I mean, that has nothing to do with dark web. Drugs should be legalized
Yeah.
everywhere. So it's not even dark web. Like it's not even that's irrelevant. um, but when it comes to, I mean, if you're if you're gonna hire a hitman, you're gonna find a way anyway through networking. So, I mean, I guess the dark web does make it easier and more efficient. But you're the one who's really, I don't know. I mean, how many? I guess it does facilitate a little bit of criminal. Like let's say like a wife who wants insurance money from the husband. She tries to hire a hitman, and it's possible that she might not have hired a hitman if the dark web was not available, because she would tire of networking, you
Yeah,
know,
it's true. It's
with
riskier. It's
yeah,
riskier to
yeah,
network in person.
yeah. So I guess it does facilitate some crime that would not have happened if it wasn't for the dark web. So I don't know. Like there's those issues are tough for me right now because I haven't. It's kind of new to me, the dark web, as far as like researching into it. So what's the other one? What's the other big one? Hitman,
Human trafficking?
human trafficking, and child pornography. I mean, I think those are the three big things. Pretty much the dark web. I can't think of anything else, but I guess satanic worship is part of you know, I don't know. Yeah, human trafficking. That I mean, kidnapping. I guess that's kind of like part of human trafficking and stuff. And uh, hmm.
I guess we'll just have to end this with a Benjamin Franklin quote. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both.
Good quote.
And here's another quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower that I think a lot of people don't know about. If you want total security, go to prison. There you're fed, clothed, given medical care, and so on. The only thing lacking is freedom.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
that one's pretty good. It makes you think because the farther you go into, well, and it's the same thing because you don't really get security in prison either. You could still get shanked or whatever. There could still be corrupt guards beating you up. You still don't really get 100% security, but you get the illusion of it where you're, supposedly it's secure. It's a secure facility. People from the outside aren't going to be coming in to attack you. The guards are supposed to protect you from other prisoners. So you have that maximum illusion with no freedom. So, but yeah, we hope you enjoyed another edition of the Mindshock podcast. If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the video, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. Also, like our Facebook page, and you can check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon as well. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to leave those. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
And Maxwell Powers.
We'll catch you guys next time.